Sedona Humane Society with Gary DeGeronimo. Gary, by the way, is the shelter manager, but more important than that, I've known Gary for a lot of years. He's also a trainer and a behaviorist that I admire because he does a lot of great work with shelter animals that otherwise would be euthanized. First of all, Gary, welcome to this show.
Thank you.
And let me just start right off the bat. Every year, millions and millions of dogs and cats are killed. I'm not trying to use the word euthanize. I'm not covering it up with some pretty word. Are killed at shelters around the country for no other reason than there's not enough homes. And my biggest problem is that the majority of these dogs and cats are often turned in for behavioral problems that can easily be resolved. I'm going to give you a list of top 10. Gary, before I do that though, now you've been working at the shelter for a lot of years and you've been in the humane movement for a lot of years. And I don't see a decrease, I see an increase in people turning their animals into the shelter. With all the knowledge out there and all the behavior, people out there that should be giving advice, why are people still continually using lame excuses to turn their pets into animal shelters?
A lot of it is they really don't want to face the necessary work it's going to take to put a dog in a situation where it's going to be friendly and happy. This is Kimber.
Yeah, I just want to ask you, tell us about Kimber.
This is Kimber. Kimber is about a 2-year-old Chihuahua mix.
Good old generic dog.
Yes, it's a purebred mix. And Kimber came to us because her owners had a situation where Kimber went after another dog in the home, and instead of trying to deal with the problem, just decided the easy way out is to turn the dog into the shelter.
You know, if my parents got rid of me for biting my sister, I would have been in a shelter too.
Many years
work
ago.
out these problems. So the dog just bit the other dog?
The dog bit the other dog.
That was it?
Yes, and the nice thing about the Humane Society of Sedona is we have resources for people. People that have issues like that, we offer behavior consultations, we offer training, and my staff, as well as our volunteers here, are very well versed on dealing with animals and animal issues, and we will take the extra step to help people keep the animals in the home.
That was one of the things, you know, I have this top 10 list, and I'm just going to go back and forth. One, for example, is, and I get this all the time, especially now with the economic situations the way they are, people will call me on the radio show and they'll go, hey Warren, I can't afford my dog or I can't afford my cat anymore. And listen, no one's more sympathetic to financial situations than I am, but the bottom line is this, there's help out there. There are food banks for dogs. For example, in Maryland, they just started a whole new concept where they deliver Meals on Wheels for seniors. And when they're delivering Meals on Wheels for seniors, because of all the statistical studies, Gary, you know as well as I do, that pets are so good for seniors, that rather than having the senior give up their pet because they can't financially afford it, when they deliver the Meals on Wheels, they're actually bringing pet food and toys that have been donated by local organizations and shelters to help these people out. So there are resources out there, but why is it that the majority of people don't? Let me give you an example. One of the biggest ones I hear right now is, I'm moving. I would live in a lean-to or a box, which by the way I have, before I would give up my pet. Now understand there are extreme circumstances, but even with those extreme circumstances, just taking a dog like this, and this breaks my heart, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. If you've ever seen anyone walk into a shelter with a dog that they've had for months or years, hand the leash over to a shelter worker, not even say goodbye to the dog, just turn around and walk out, and then, I'm going to tear up, and then watch the dog turn around and look at this person as they're walking away and say, why? What did I do that was so bad that you don't love me anymore? They don't understand it, Gary.
We do have those situations here at the shelter. We do have a food bank here at the Humane Society of Sedona. We offer every concept that we can give to the people to hang on to their dogs. Like you said, there are legitimate reasons.
Exactly.
Some legitimate reasons, which are sad. We understand that, we will take them in, but the need to offer resources to the public to help keep these animals in the home need to be shared by all the shelters, and all the rescue groups.
But some of the shelters and some of the groups, especially a lot of the city shelters, they have the resources. I mean, they have the volunteers, but somehow the volunteers get pushed aside. But the bottom line is the resources are there. There are things that we can do. I'll give you another example, and I know you hear this all the time. One of the first articles I ever wrote for Family Circle magazine was called What to Expect from Your Pet When You're Expecting. And so many young couples nowadays, what they do is they have a dog or a cat, because after 6 months, let's face it, they're bored of each other, and this dog or cat becomes their baby, and then a year down the road, they decide to have human baby number one. And everyone says, well, you gotta get rid of the dog, you gotta give up the cat, blah, 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 blah. And here they have this dog or their cat, like they're the only people in the world that's ever had a dog and a baby. So rather than take the time to socialize and prepare the dog or the cat for the arrival of the baby, when the baby comes, this poor dog or cat is turned into a shelter where at one time had its own couch to sit on and watch TV. And nothing devastates me more. I always tell people, listen, get rid of the baby, keep the dog if that's the case. You had the dog first. Do you find that a lot of people come into the Sedona shelter and say, you know, here's the problem, Gary, we're having a baby and we can't have the dog anymore?
We do. Unfortunately, we have seen that on multiple occasions. We will offer, again, resources, help to sit down and tell them how to introduce an existing dog to a new member of the family, the baby. But a lot of people have a mindset, as you say, and they say, no, that's it, we don't want the dog with the baby, as sad as it is.
One of the big problems that I get a lot, especially now on the radio shows, people calling me up and the scenario is, I have to get rid of my dog, Warren. I love my dog, but I have to get rid of him because I can't afford the veterinary costs. We talked about the food aspect, and we know that there are food banks available. As far as I'm concerned, most shelters have an oversupply of food. They can donate some food to the neighbors, and a lot of the pet food companies would be willing to do that as well. But what about the person that comes in and says, I can't afford veterinary care? I mean, I know, for example, there are organizations like Actors and Others, and organizations that will help people in the smaller localities, like in the Sedona scenario, or a Cottonwood scenario, or Small Town USA. How can people get help with veterinary costs?
We do offer a program to assist people. Obviously, it's limited because of our limited budget, sure. But we do offer people to apply for funds to help them with medical issues. We will also try to recommend in different locales where they may find less expensive veterinary care, still good veterinary care, but less expensive. So we try to do the best we can with the resources we have.
And there are other things out there people could do. For example, guys, if you live in a larger city, let's say, for example, you lived in Ithaca, New York, and you had a dog or a cat and you couldn't afford veterinary care, a lot of the veterinary colleges will offer a lot of low-cost veterinary care as a training for their students, but they're being supervised by licensed veterinarians. So that's one way that you might want to think about going. And the other thing you might want to think about also in terms of saving money on veterinary costs is keeping your pet healthy. Do that checkup once a year with your veterinarian, brush those teeth, feed the dog a good diet. But so many dogs wind up from a dollar and cents point of view, and it really devastates me. And what's amazing is that a dog like this could care less whether you have money in your pocket or not. All they want is love. I mean, I work with a woman occasionally in Southern California that does a lot of work with the homeless. She goes out, I mean, she's this big, but she goes out into the worst neighborhoods that I would be scared to go into, and she makes sure these homeless people, and what she says to me is, Warren, they can't feed themselves, a lot of them, but you can rest assured those dogs have a full belly when they go to sleep at night.
We just recently had a gentleman come in, well, actually Animal Control brought his 3 dogs in. He was living in his car. Any money that he received, he purchased food for his animals, to the point where he ended up in the hospital. We ended up with his animals because he was feeding his animals before himself.
And you know, it's also interesting, occasionally, and I get this all the time, is Warren, my dog doesn't like my boyfriend, or Warren, my cat despises my girlfriend, so if this relationship is going to go forward, I have to give my dog or cat up. And my feeling has always been, and then again, I'm a little eccentric, that if there's a relationship that is making you give something up that you adore and you love, that person isn't trying hard enough to establish a good relationship with that pet, and I say get rid of the bum and keep the pet. And I know that may not sound right to a lot of people, but the bottom line is, and this is a true story, and a lot of people know my my history, that my wife passed away in 1990, and when I started dating again, at that point in my life, I had 2 900-pound pigs, 6 chickens, 6 ducks, 30 dogs, and God knows how many cats that were rescues, and a couple of rats thrown in a snake or whatever. And when I started dating again, it was very difficult. I mean, they might accept a Schnauzer or a Cocker Spaniel, but they're not accepting 2 900-pound pigs. But yet I knew from the reaction of that person whether that person was the type of person that could match with my personality that's going to have to be involved with animals their whole life. And I think that's important because if you're an animal lover, why would you want to be involved with someone that you can't share that love with?
Keep in mind too that animals are very intuitive.
They are.
They'll know whether that person likes them or not.
Exactly. It's
So
the dog
maybe
test.
your animal's telling you something.
That's right, get rid of him. I'm telling you, if your dog doesn't like someone, get rid of him. That's real important. Now, there are certain situations, for example, health problems. Now, I've been involved, I'm on the board of directors for one of the largest rescue organizations in the country, the oldest no-kill shelter called the Vital in New York. And for years and years and years, what would happen is a senior citizen or an elderly person would get sick. They're not dying, but they may have to go into a home or a hospital for a 3-month or a 2-month or a 4-month period of time. And on top of their medical, what could be worse for this person than the loss of their pet? So there are some humane organizations, some rescue groups around the country that are kind of offering, what's the term I want to use, but temporary care until the person is better able to take care of their pet. And at a place like Sedona, the shelter here is perfect because we're going to talk about this in other segments, but the way you guys socialize and keep the dogs mentally stimulated, it's not like they're being incarcerated as it would be in other types of shelters. So have you run across that where a senior says, I'm going into the hospital for a month or two or whatever and I need someone? I mean, do you have foster homes that you work with that would help you out in a situation like that?
We have our own foster homes that not only take our animals, but are willing to help others. But for short-term situations, we have, as in the case of the homeless gentleman I mentioned with the 3 dogs, we kept his dogs here. We did not, at that point, charge him because he was on limited income anyway. And then we made sure before he left with his animals after he got out of the hospital that he had a well supply of food. And so we will assist the
So you take that extra step. You go, I wish everyone would do that, but here's another example. And then what we're going to do in a few minutes, I'm going to talk to you guys with Gary about some of the behavioral problems in terms of specifics: jumping, barking, digging, running out of the door, not getting along with the neighbor, mounting grandma's leg. We'll talk about those in a little while. But one of the ones that I get all the time is, I work too long. My hours are too long, but I already had the dog for 5 years, but this new job, and now I got to get rid of the dog. What do I do, Warren? What do I do? And here is my quote, folks. Go to the bank with this. It's not the quantity of time you spend with a pet that's important. It's the quality of time you spend with a pet that's important. And if you work 8 hours a day, there's nothing wrong with a dog or a cat being left 8 hours a day, provided you provide mental stimulation. Leave the TV on. Leave the radio on. Rotate the toys. Exercise beforehand. And remember, when you come home from work and you're aggravated, I can't take the dog, he's jumping on me, you've been working all day. Your dog's had nothing to do but stay at home and watch All My Family. So when you come home, you're tired, your dog's revved up. Take that first 15 minutes. Spend it with your dog, and the rest of you can have a relaxing evening the rest of the night. And I'm sure the big one you get here is, Warren or Gary, my dog is not housebroken, or my cat is missing the litter box. What do I do? Is there anything easier for a behaviorist or a trainer or even anyone with a little common sense to help someone figure out why their dog or cat may be having a housebreaking problem?
We absolutely address that almost on a daily basis.
I would think so.
We have brochures that I have out front so that they can take it home with them and read it. But depending on the situation, we'll investigate, as any behaviorist would do, is a lot of investigation on what's going on, and then adjust whatever the situation is to them. We tell them that obviously you have to spend time addressing the problem to fix the problem. You can't just leave them, go away, and expect that problem to be resolved. So we will, in fact, counsel them, tell them to put the animal on a schedule, start the routine, the standard.
With the cleanup with properly.
And just show them where the door is, show them how to, the door means going outside, alerting them. But they have to be aware of what the situation is and be in tune with their dog.
And it's such an easy problem to resolve. It's not a concept of teaching the dog to go outside. The concept is teaching the dog never to go inside.
Correct.
Therefore, there's no
Correct.
option. All right, so now we've talked about a lot of different reasons why people keep up their pets. But as a behaviorist, for as many years as I've been, I've heard it all. I've seen it all. Every possible behavioral reason that people would give their pets up. Let's just go down the list. I'm going to go back and forth with you, Gary. jumping on people. Do you hear that often?
Probably one of the easiest resolutions.
And yet how many dogs either wind up at shelters or wind up being euthanized because of a jumping problem that's so easily resolved?
I actually worked with that problem in a parking lot. A lady came in and she took her dog out of the car and was going to surrender the dog because it was jumping up. Within about 5 or 10 minutes, with a lot of good tasty treats, the dog was coming up and sitting down. And she drove away with the dog in her car, called me several weeks later saying everything is okay now.
It's one session.
Yeah, it took 5-10 minutes.
I had someone call up on the radio show a couple of weeks ago. They wanted to get rid of their dog. Ready for this reason? And I'm sure you've heard this too, because the dog chases cars and it chases bicycles, and she lived in Southern California, and it chases skateboards. And trainers of behavior said to her, there's nothing that can be done. So here's my explanation. We haven't talked about this, but see if you agree with me. Why do dogs chase cars? Why do dogs chase bicycles? Why do dogs bark at the mailman? Because every time the mailman comes, your dog wins. Every time your dog chases a car, the car runs away, your dog wins. Every time your dog chases a bicycle, the bicycle rides away, your dog wins. So in reality, the dog just assumes what he's doing is exactly the right thing to do. So when you're dealing with dogs, for example, that chase cars and chase bicycles, sometimes, probably the only time, I'll get a little tougher with the dog than other times, because it's a matter of saving the dog's life or not in terms of getting hit by a car. So I might use an air horn, I'll use a lunge line with a dog in that situation. In extreme cases, Gary, what I've done is I've actually had people that I've known drive, and as the dog goes to lunge, I have them jam on the brakes of their car with air horns, throwing things down, to actually create a fear of, I don't like to do that, but when it's a matter of life and death, I think there are certain situations like that. But then again, another reason, what are some of the reasons, for example, that you get out there? Barking, digging, running, what are some of the reasons you get?
For animals coming into the shelter?
Yeah, I gave up my dog, Gary, because.
Well, dashing out the door, one, very simple, another simple issue to resolve. Doesn't get along with the other dogs in the home. You know, the children, it's knocking over the children now. That's another big one. But the jumping up and the unruliness and
Digging
my dog
holes.
just doesn't listen or even coming back to me when I call him.
When did a petunia become more important than a Pomeranian? Now, if you, I don't know where this stuff comes from. If you were to come into my backyard in Santa Monica, okay, what you would see in my backyard, because digging is a big problem. A lot of people are into their gardens. In my backyard, I have a kiddie pool. And it's a Flintstone kiddie pool. That's what Skylar and Cisco decided they wanted.
Neat.
And it only cost me $10.
Bet.
Went to Home Depot, bought some sand, fill it with sand, fill it with a little dirt, put their toys in it. I went in there and I started digging. I teased the heck out of mine, because if you tease them, that's what they want. They always want what you have. So I got in there and I started digging, throwing sand up. I did it at night so my neighbors wouldn't see me, although my neighbors already have certain questions about the guy next door. And now, in my backyard, I can have my petunias, I can have my roses, I can have my little lemon tree, and that's the only place in my backyard. And I'm always putting new stuff in there where the dogs dig, because I made the backyard interesting.
It's the same concept. We call it a dig pit. We create a fence off a little area for the dog. I tell the owners to go in there with the dog, dig with them, even bury a few things in there for them. If they see them in the yard, interested in digging, quickly and happily bring them over to the dig pit and show them that that's what they did.
What about from a basic perspective? Do you have a lot of people turning dogs in? And we're talking a lot about dogs, but let me tell you, one of the biggest problems is shelters are overrun with cats. And a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of behavioral problems that people have with their cats. I've been answering questions for 30 years. For example, the cat's scratching, the cat's missing a litter box, the cat doesn't get along with the other cat, the cat's jumping on top of the counters, he's waking me up in the middle of the night, he's screwing up the Venetian blinds. Hey Warren, the cat sucks, what do I do? All of these problems are so easy to resolve.
The good one is waking me up in the middle of the night or too early. That's a Home Depot issue. You go get a door and you put it on your bedroom.
Exactly.
And keep the cat out of your bedroom.
And the other thing I try to explain to people is let's face it, cats, first of all, cats are nomadic by nature, they like changes, and cats are nocturnal animals. You know what that means, guys? They're up during the day, up at night, sleep during the day. So when you are out all day long, your cat's probably sleeping in the neighborhood of 16 to 18, maybe even a longer. So what's he supposed to do at night? That's when his energy kicks in. It's up to you, as a good cat guardian, to reverse that time clock. I make sure that people spend a lot of time before they go to bed exercising their cat, getting that energy out of the cat, bringing home paper bags, cardboard boxes. So would you say, Gary, that a good, I don't want to put you on the spot here and ask for a percentage because no one has the answer, but would you say, and I believe that 99.9% of the behavioral problems that people bring their pets to shelters, and not every shelter is like Sedona. I mean, we're gonna talk about a dog later on that would have been killed anywhere else. That 99.9% of the behavioral problems can be resolved, and my problem is that, and that's why I consider you a friend, and I have other behaviorists that, dozens of humane and rescue organizations, but my problem is this, and it seems to me that in the last couple of years that everyone has become a dog trainer and a behaviorist. And let me just give you the example of my own dog, Cisco. Cisco came out of a hoarding situation, my little Chihuahua mix. There were 180 dogs that spent 8 months at the Los Angeles County shelters, which I call Auschwitz, at Baldwin Park, and they kept them there for 8 months, never spayed or neutered them because there was a legal case going on. They were giving birth at the shelter. And the shelter called in, actually hired 3 behaviorists, 2 top behaviorists from San Francisco, 1 God knows where. They came in there, they evaluated these Chihuahuas, never touched them, just looked at the cage and evaluated these Chihuahuas, and at that point said, none of these dogs can be saved, they're all feral, they all have to be slaughtered. Chihuahua Rescue gave me a call and said, Warren, will you do us a favor? Of course I'm going to do a favor. I volunteered, I went down there. Did I get chewed up a little bit by the Chihuahuas? I certainly did, but the bottom line is, every one of those dogs is now living a happily life. And to prove my point, I adopted Cisco, the first one. And if that was just one shelter, how many millions of dogs and cats are being killed every year just because there's no reason?
The key word is millions.
So,
There are millions.
what would you say, to stop this, would you say that probably one of the most important things that shelters and rescues and humane societies can do is make sure that they have a qualified behavior person, a qualified trainer? I'm not just talking about the guy at the front bench. I'm talking about someone who can really sit down and analyze. It's the only way to resolve our problems, to figure out why the problem's there. And I believe that is the answer, that shelters really need to have people not only involved with rescue and adoption, they're just as important as everything else, but people like yourself that can guide people in terms of resolving behavioral problems.
You need a little experience. You need a little time put into the issues so that you know how to advise people. It's not one size fits all. You need to address the issue that the dog is dealing with that person. And like you said, investigate and find out why. But yeah, qualified people, it's key. It's key of keeping the animals out of the shelter and getting the ones in the shelter into homes.
Let me just kind of end this part by saying it's really important, folks, that if you're looking to adopt a dog or you're looking to get a pet, there's really, unless there's some specific reason that you need a purebred dog, and by the way, 25% of all dogs at shelters in this country are purebred dogs, and there's purebred rescues for every breed of dog. These are not second-hand dogs. You know, a lot of people are under the assumption, and one of the fights, Gary, I've been fighting my whole life, is they think that if you go to a shelter, or you go to a rescue, or you go to a humane society, these dogs come with all this horrible baggage. The only baggage these dogs come with is the fact that the previous owners either didn't love them or had to give them up for a reason. And I gotta be honest with you, I honestly believe this from my heart, that when you take a dog like this in, which by the way, don't feel guilty, he already has 2 people that want to adopt him. When you take a dog like this into your home, they know you saved their lives and they pay you back every day for the rest of the year. So as far as I'm concerned, every shelter, every rescue, every humane organization should have someone like Gary who not only works with his head and his knowledge, but also never lost the passion. So many people in the pet profession lose the passion, it becomes a job. That's why I have so much respect for Gary, based on the fact that the passion is always there, always coming with new and creative ideas so that people can enjoy their pets and keep them at their homes more often. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to do a short little piece on a follow-up of this. I'm going to talk about this dog right here. This dog right here is Conan. Conan was turned into the shelter And at any other shelter but this one, he probably would have been killed right away. We're going to introduce you to Conan, and I'm going to explain to you, or Gary's going to explain to you a little bit of his background. We'll be right back. Well, I'm back here with Gary, and we're talking earlier about why so many dogs and cats are turned into shelters for behavioral reasons that can easily be resolved. And in the next few months, what I'm going to do is tackle those behavioral reasons one at a time and give you some resolutions to them. But right now, I wanted to share this story with you. Gary started telling me the story of Conan. I actually met Conan a while back, and the last time I met Conan, she was just starting to be rehabilitated, and Conan, I keep saying she, but Conan was kind of like a little weary of strangers. Now, generally, a dog like Conan brought into a shelter would have been put to sleep right away, but Gary and his staff have continued to work with it. Gary, I'm going to let you take over the segment. I want you to tell my viewers the story of how Conan wound up at the Humane Society here.
Conan came to us about 6 months ago. A couple neighbors observed Conan in a backyard for many, many months. At least the first 9 months of his life he spent chained to his shed. He had no shelter. The only attention he had was from some gentlemen who lived in the home that threw rocks at him and hit him with sticks. When Conan first came to us, he went to a cage that we put him in, a kennel, and he went up against the wall, put his head against the wall and down, and drooled. And he did that for hours. We began a slow process of desensitizing. We started just with a few of the kennel staff and myself. We would go in and at least try to touch Conan a little bit at a time. It took months. Conan soon came out of the kennel, went into offices downstairs in the care center at the shelter, and spent his time there. We began introducing a few experienced volunteers at a time to Conan. Then, after a while, we allowed Conan to come out into the general population where he had his own kennel run. He was able to observe people coming and going, realizing that people weren't as scary as he thought they were. Occasionally, people would hand him a treat. He wouldn't come to the cage at first, but then he realized it was okay. And now Conan, after all this time, and it has been about 6 months, Conan, even though still has a little timidity in him, goes for his walks every day. He loves other dogs. He's starting to enjoy people interaction. And we actually have a volunteer who has fallen in love with Conan, has put out an application, and they're building a bond together right now. And once that bond becomes really solid, Conan will be going into a home.
You know, it's such a great story, Gary, and one of those stories that you don't hear enough of. Perfect example, and I said this earlier in the show, there's no way that at the majority of, especially city and county run shelters in this country, that he would have survived more than an hour. They would have put him to sleep right away. And that's the point, I think, the whole point of doing this segment today is this, that there is generally no reason to give your dog or your cat up for behavioral problems. Almost every behavioral problem can be resolved. Now, I can't turn every dog into Lassie, Benji, and Rin Tin Tin, but that doesn't mean that I can't make Cujo a good house pet. So the bottom line here is, folks, when you're thinking about adopting and you're thinking about going to a shelter, find someone like Gary that you can talk to. Get some background on the dog or cat so that you're aware of the dog or cat's background and you can make the right choices when you bring them home. As far as I'm concerned, every single dog, like Conan, should have a home and be loved. And that's what it's all about. Perfect example, this dog would not be here. Look at that face, look at that smile, look at the fact that he's already got someone that wants him to take him home. No reason, folks, no reason to give up your pets. You have a problem, talk to the people at the shelter, talk to behaviorists, let's get them resolved. I'll help you cope with some of the behavioral issues in future segments. Thank you, Gary. And thank you, Conan.